Hello, everyone, and welcome back to an emergency fan behavior bonus episode because Lewis Hamilton is going to Ferrari.
Genuinely words I never thought we would be saying.
I don't think I even introduced us. I'm Zoe and this is Hannah.
Hi. Sorry.
It's too overwhelming to even like
what the hell is going on?
Get our brain straight. There's so much to get into, like genuinely so much to like timeline wise to unpack.
Because the Easter eggs have been laid for a long time.
Yes, the eggs have been laid.
But yeah, and it was just so out of left field in a lot of ways that no one was looking for them.
Right. I mean, it's so funny. We just had obviously Nate Saunders on the show, and we were talking about Charles' extension and what's to come.
Right.
And he even sort of jokingly talked about or referred to the story that Christian Horner, when Christian Horner came up to him on the grid and was like, "So those Hamilton to Ferrari rumors."
And he, of course, hadn't heard them because what? And Horner's such a pot stirrer that like there was a 50-50 chance he was being it was true. You know what I mean?
Or he was just pulling his leg.
Yeah, for sure.
Or just trying to stir the pot.
He wasn't.
He was not. Or maybe maybe he was, but then he just ended up being true.
Yeah, he even saw further than...
Right.
I mean, what?
Okay, so yeah, if you've been living under a rock, Lewis Hamilton has signed with Ferrari for 2025.
And you genuinely would have had to been living under a rock for the past 12 hours.
Correct. In the F1 space.
Yeah, sure.
You know, it is funny. I was just watching a bit of Pardon the Interruption, the ESPN show, with my dad before I came down here, and I was like, do you think they're gonna talk about Lewis? Because it's a sports show, they go through all the sports, but it's an American sports show, so it obviously focuses mostly on American sports and American athletes, and they did.
Good.
And kind of
they're in tune.
Mentioned it. So I was like, wow, this when F1 cracks like the sort of mainstream American sports broadcast, you know, it's a big deal. Okay, before we get into all of this, I guess I just want to first ask you your thoughts. How you feel about this?
I don't really know. Okay. I think it's one of those, like, we've talked about this before, and I have said on the record, like, I don't see Lewis doing anything but staying at Merck until he retires. Right. Now, I also, you know, he has made mention before, as I'm sure we'll talk about, that he would love to, you know, finish out his career potentially with Ferrari. I know Merck has like been on the not decline, but like they haven't been doing as well as they had in the past. But I also like on paper, yes, Ferrari has been better than Mercedes, but I also don't necessarily think that, like, I don't know. I don't really see. My gut reaction to all of this is that he's retiring after the 2025 season, and he's doing one last year with Ferrari. Now, literally anything can happen, as we've seen today. So that doesn't, like, that could be total nonsense. He could drive until he's 70.
Well, he signed, we'll get into this, he signed a multi-year contract.
Sure, and he did that
Ferrari
with
announced
Mercedes too, so
in their announcement that it is a multi-year deal. So my anticipation, and then we'll get into this too, but a lot of his decision making was about 2026. So my estimate is he will at least be there for a couple years, if not more than a couple years.
Well, that's good, because I mean, it would have been lame for everyone if he was just there for a year. Right. But before it was like officially announced, everything was like a year. And I was like, okay, well.
Yeah. They only talked about 2025, or they only mentioned like he's going to be there for 2025. So it was unclear as to what was to come. Yeah. For me, obviously anyone who listens to this show, I mean, they know that Daniel Ricciardo is numero uno, but that I'm a Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton stan.
Right.
And I think we've even talked about on this show, like when people have asked, who's your dream partner? Like who's your dream pairing? Who's your dream teammate pairing? I think I probably even said at some point Lewis and Charles, just because I love them so much individually. And I think that they're so talented. And then also I feel like they have a nice friendship where it's not like they're super close, where it could, like a Lewis Nico, where things could get really sour if there's tension, but there's like a nice mutual respect and admiration that it's a good foundation for a partnership.
Yeah.
So when I saw it, I was like kind of excited about it because I was like, damn, this is, I mean, you just mentioned a few weeks ago how you're now going to be a team girly because of Lando Oscar. And I feel like I've always liked Ferrari. Of course, how could you? I mean,
it's Ferrari.
It's Ferrari.
Yeah.
And if you're an F1 fan, it's like you kind of get swept up in that legacy sort of
race cars are red.
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, they're also Ferrari, and they always like screw up and have caused a lot of devastation. So it's like part of me is like, am I really a Ferrari fan? But I feel like with the partnership between Lewis and Charles, I can now officially I can go all in on red.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Unless of
100
course
on red.
Unless of course Daniel is at Red Bull, and then I cannot go all in on red.
Sure.
But as a collective unit, I can support. So my initial feeling is one of positivity, but I feel like, and by the way, to everyone who messaged us today, I mean, our Instagram messages, I woke up, we had it was like 6:45. We had over 50 messages. I knew something major had happened because I was like, holy shit.
At least no one died.
And thank God. And then just over the course of the day, just literal, I mean, I would try to respond and then it would be 20 more messages and I could not keep up. So apologies if you've messaged us and we haven't been able to respond. It's just been the most I think I've ever seen since we started this account, and people are truly losing their minds.
Yeah, I think you posted this on our story, but someone compared it, this moment being very similar to when Zayn left One Direction. And I really can't agree with that more. The community was off the rails today. What do we do? What's going on? So many questions. Yeah. So it's been a hectic day, and honestly, I was shocked that something like this comes out before the season begins.
I know. Yeah, we'll definitely have to get into that because the timing of it is very interesting. And then I mean, I feel like everyone's been saying this is the biggest news that's happened who knows when? There's just nothing. And we were even should we do a bonus episode? Should we not? And it's I feel like we can now safely say this is the bar.
Yeah, totally.
It's got to be as crazy as Lewis Hamilton leaving to go to Ferrari in order for us to do one of these again. I don't know what that would look like. Maybe Max leaving or something.
Sure, yeah.
That would be
just
big.
Do Sim full time. But even I think you said that Nate Saunders on his podcast said this is the biggest news he's covered in his 10 years of F1 journalism. And, he's my E-News in Formula One.
We trust and believe.
Yeah. So, I mean, if this is a big deal for him, a bonus episode is warranted.
Yes. Will Buxton also said, which we'll get back to Will Buxton, but Will Buxton said, he was like, I can't think of a bigger driver announcement ever.
Yeah. I mean, it's so bonkers.
It's very, very crazy. Okay, let's just get into all of it. Because I feel like it all started out, well, again, as we mentioned, there's been weird rumors that come up every once in a while, but I feel like this all started last night for us when Will Buxton tweeted something that, is my least favorite thing when journalists do this. And it just annoys me. I obviously sent it to you, but basically he said something to the effect of a major announcement is coming, and then he said, if it's what I think it is, it's absolutely massive. Yeah. Which I'm just PSA, do not do this.
Yeah, well, of course they do that. I mean, that's all, it's such a it's marketing. Of course he did that, but I think what's hard is there was such a good chance that it was going to be a new team principal. You know what I mean? And so because I do feel like he has made buzz like that around announcements that have been
not that great.
Yeah. Or not insignificant, but just haven't broken the internet. Yes. And this is breaking the internet. Yes. So if we're honest, that tweet was really relaxed when we actually found out what the news is.
Yes. So then,
but still annoying.
It's still just don't say, just either say it or don't. But the sort of cryptic thing is just
I know something you don't know. It's maybe coming. It's maybe not.
It's like if I texted you, oh my God, I have something major to tell you.
And then went radio silent.
Which is the worst. I can't tell you until tomorrow.
Yeah. And friends have done that to me before where they're like, oh my God. And then they're just gone. I'm like, look, no, because now I can't do anything else until I hear from you. Don't do that.
Yeah, I know. Or I have a huge surprise for your birthday.
But I can't tell you. It's okay, shut up then. Make it a real surprise.
Exactly. But then a Italian journalist, and I cannot remember his name, so apologies, but I also sent this to you as well. He tweeted something to the effect of rumors are that Lewis is going to be joining Ferrari. Announcement could be coming in the coming days. So obviously, so he at least, said what was going on.
Right.
Thank you. And actually our internet friend, Maria, posted it on Instagram, and I messaged her and I was like, okay, how reliable is this person?
Yeah.
Should we should we trust what he says? And she's like, he's very trustworthy.
E-News.
And so I was like, shit, okay. But again, still
yeah, and I will say it's a bold thing to put out there if there's no basis, because you're going to get annihilated.
It's like the Nick DeVries thing.
Yeah.
When that was being first reported, it's like, okay, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah.
And there certainly was in both cases. Then we woke up this morning and then everything has since happened. Okay. So I wanted to there was a great article on the F1 website by our, I think we should also include him in our Nate Saunders, Chris Medland grouping, Lawrence Barretto.
Absolutely.
I think who also does a great job.
And they do a podcast together, don't they?
I guess that's true.
Yeah. Truth tellers stick together.
Truth tellers. So he kind of laid out what transpired between Lewis and Ferrari in the past handful of months. Well, really in the last year, and how we got to where we are today. So I'm just going to kind of go through some of what he talked about. So Ferrari, no surprise to anyone, has been trying to get Lewis for years, which I feel like this happens a lot in Formula One, right? There's always talks happening between drivers and teams, and maybe you're trying to get someone, you have a bit of a conversation when their contract's coming, like Lando and Red Bull, right? It's there's always kind of talks, but
there's always a wish list.
Nothing ever comes of it, and whatever. So these talks have kind of happened over the years. Then I guess last spring, so spring of 2023, Lewis got a call from the Ferrari chairman, John Elkann, who made another play for Lewis, wanting to sign him for 2024, which is interesting because obviously Lewis's contract was up in 23. So it makes sense that he was having conversations. But Carlos's contract was through 24. Mm-hmm. So were they planning to just
probably
give him the boot? Interesting. If that is true, that is
interesting.
Curious. Lewis thought about it. They had some very loose conversations, but then obviously in the summer of 2023, Lewis signs this 2-year deal with Merck. We now know it was a 1+1 deal. Mm-hmm. So a bit misleading.
And now also it makes sense potentially why those negotiations took so long, because he was really making sure that +1 left room for
and also
ship.
People said that I guess Lewis really wanted a longer contract, but then Mercedes was kind of pushing back on the length because obviously Lewis's age and whatever, they both were kind of unsure, and so there was just a lot of clearly maybe not necessarily seeing eye to eye on all things. So anyway, Lewis signs the deal. Then it becomes more clear in fall, winter of last year, just a few months ago, that the Mercedes car for this year was probably not going to be where Lewis wanted it to be, which is fighting the Red Bull. And teams can get a sense of what their next year's car is going to be at the end of last year or at the end of the year. And so then Ferrari called again this winter, and this time he was more interested. This is what he wrote. So I'm going to read exactly
This is what Lawrence wrote?
Lawrence wrote. This is, what he said. Ferrari laid out their short to medium term plan to Hamilton. They believe they are on the right path with development. They believe 2026, when new regulations are introduced, can be the turning point and set them in motion to end their titleist run. They believe their 2026 power unit, which will run 100% sustainable fuel, can be the class leader, and they have form in this area. Hamilton absorbed the information and a decision was made. In his mind, now was the time to take the leap of faith and race for the team all F1 drivers ultimately want to drive for. He signed on the dotted line with everything finalized early this week, and he subsequently informed Mercedes of his decision to leave on yesterday.
Wow.
So that's why. So I feel like a couple of things I think are true. One is Lewis clearly came to the realization that the Mercedes plan, it was never going to resolve itself.
Right.
We've been waiting. Is it going to get better? Is it going to get better? Is it going to get better? And then it's and
it's not in a timeline that works for him.
Right. And it was this clearly is not going to, And I think, we know, even just being fans for a couple years, F1 is so, it's it's so based in like eras.
Right.
And like if you nail an era, you will be successful for many, many years. Obviously, Lewis had that era.
Right.
And now we're in the Red Bull era. And so it's like, if you don't figure it out right away, you're probably never going to figure it out in that cycle. And so he must have thought to himself, okay, it's not going to work here. I've given it some time. I've given it these 2 years. Now this other upcoming year, I might as well go and race for the team that I've always wanted to race for.
Yeah.
And like, just give it one final shot.
Sure.
Because it's not going to happen here. So what do I have to lose by going over here? That's the only way that I can kind of like rationalize it, because obviously he doesn't know if they're going to be fast or successful, or but I kind of think he probably felt like, I'm going to roll the dice and I'm just going to go for it because
why the hell not? Yeah.
Why the hell not?
The sustainable fuel piece is interesting. When you read that, I was like, oh.
Yeah. I don't know.
But I could see that like, being something that, not that made like a decision by any means, but definitely went in the pro column.
Yeah. He's like making a list.
I would.
Yeah. So, okay. So I guess the first question to ask is, why Ferrari? Why now? Why this sperm? If you know, you know.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think, to the point earlier, like it's an iconic team. It's an iconic brand. Like everybody knows what Ferrari is, whether or not they know Formula One.
Insert Sebastian Vettel quote.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
it's funny. He says, even the Mercedes guys, you ask them, he says that in the quote, which is funny.
That is true. And I think it wouldn't surprise me if, you've been there for so long. I think anyone our age, like millennial age people, like when I think about working somewhere for longer than 10 years, I like cannot fathom that. Yeah. Like I've had family members who have worked at the same company their whole career, and that's wild.
Yes, I agree.
So I think there's a little bit of that, and like he gets to try new things out. And I do think that it seems like over the last handful of years, the tension has built in Mercedes, as you can imagine it would when you are in an era of winning and then you aren't. Yeah. Like it seems like there's maybe more friction internally than there used to be. I don't know, like I'm not saying that Angela or whatever had anything to do with this, but like that breakdown of that working relationship felt a little weird. So I feel like he's probably ready just for a change in general. And like even if he's going to stay roughly in the same place on the grid from like a competitive standpoint, he's at least giving himself a change of scenery. And like the common denominator for him right now is the team he's on. And so shifting that, I don't disagree. Like Ferrari's been in an era before. It's not like they can't get there again. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's, a million more reasons on his side that he like made the decision. But I think just from what we can see on a surface level, I guess when you talk it out, it's not that shocking. Totally. I think it's just, it wild.
Is, but it's
not shocking that he would want to make a career move, but it's shocking that it happened at all. Yeah.
I completely agree. I also, I think, I feel like there's some people that are upset with him for like bailing on Mercedes, but my feeling is, well, first of all, he's been there for 2 years, I guess you could even say 3 because he didn't win in 21, but the last 2 years, 22 and 23, hasn't gotten a win, car has been shit. It's like, and at some point you kind of got to say to yourself, like, loyalty takes you so far.
Sure.
And if the project's not working anymore and you still feel like you have something left in you, then it's okay. In my opinion, it's okay to want to make a change. Like this whole like loyalty thing and, you were with them when it was good and then things went bad and now you won't stick with them. It's like, well, why should we have to like be in a situation that we're not fulfilled in anymore when we can go elsewhere? Like,
and anyone who's competitive knows if you're a winner, you don't like losing. Yes. Period. So he's been losing for several years, which is not something he's used to doing or has any interest in doing.
Yes.
And now he thinks there's a team that can make him not lose. Now, I don't know at what point Red Bull is going to have any sort of downturn. So everyone's going to always kind of be competing against Red Bull, at least for the foreseeable future. But I don't know. I mean, I would love to see Ferrari be more competitive. We've been saying that forever.
We'll keep saying it forever.
And hopefully Lewis coming in, and we might talk about this later. I don't know. I haven't seen the notes, but maybe like Lewis coming in will make it so that it will change up the team.
Vibes. Yes.
We need new engineer. We need a new team. Like Lewis does not do lackadaisical, period.
Nope.
So like that's got to go.
Yep.
And I imagine that's part of his contract.
Yes. And I think that, yeah, we can get into that too, like more, but I think Ferrari is also realizing like they had a way of doing things for such a long time that we now realize is archaic.
Yeah.
Also, like, just not with the times,
right.
not with the not as innovative as other teams are. They were just like stuck in this weird period where the best engineers, the best people were not working for them. They were elsewhere. And I feel like they needed to like, and we know this too, like how often have we heard about them? They're like weird rules for drivers. Like, oh, we don't want to have Daniel Ricciardo because he laughs too much. Or like, we don't want to, it's like, oh, he doesn't look like a Ferrari driver or whatever. Which is funny because it's like you had Kimi Räikkönen,
right.
you had Fernando Alonso, right. Like you had all these, which are iconic drivers, but it's just interesting. I think they're now. I mean, Lewis Hamilton like is the epitome of an F1 driver, so like he doesn't necessarily like go against the grain.
Sure,
but I think Lewis comes with like, I mean, they're also very corporate and they're also very like buttoned up, and they don't want to like rock the boat. They don't want to like like say the wrong thing. They don't ever really try to, they try to stay out of like touchy conversations. And obviously we know Lewis does not avoid those types of things. So I think he's going to kind of, like shake it up.
Good. It needs it.
Yeah.
Shake it up, Chicago.
I was literally going to say
I could tell.
So anyway, okay. So I think we kind of, and again, why Ferrari, it's like when a child, draws a race car, they draw it red. Like, who wouldn't want to draw? Who wouldn't want to race for Ferrari? Max has talked about. I mean, it would not shock me at the end of Max's career if he wants to drive there. It's like you can't ignore that.
Yeah,
that part of it. That other teams just don't have that kind of legacy power that Ferrari has, and that holds weight.
Yeah.
Okay. Mercedes. So now obviously they're in a bit of a pickle.
Sure.
Because they thought they were going to have Lewis Hamilton a bit longer than they are going to have him. Who is going to replace Lewis Hamilton, I think, is going to be the conversation on everyone's lips this year.
Yeah, well, and it's an unexpected conversation.
Yes, exactly.
For everyone.
We thought Merck is going to be out of this conversation.
Right.
Not the case.
Not the
case. What is that? Not the case.
I don't know.
That's really going to bother me. Yeah. And we can't spend time thinking about it.
In the comments.
The case. Oh, no, it's from Bridesmaids. Melissa McCarthy. That's what I know it from. She was, not the case. Yeah. Not the case.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. I can hear her.
Yeah. Anyway. So
Megan,
who do you think is like first, currently top of the list Merck replacement?
My guess would be Alex Albon. I know we talked with Nate about him maybe moving into Red Bull. I think it's certainly plausible. I just really don't know if that's something he wants to do.
Yeah.
So I could see that being an interesting move for sure. Outside of the grid though, or on the grid, I'm not really sure who else would make sense.
So I think Alex Albon is a really good option because obviously he's sort of in the Mercedes family racing for Williams. He's really proven himself the last couple of years. He's racing really well. He's of the right age where it's like, okay, him and George as a partnership could be someone that you keep around.
Very fun social promo.
Yes. Oh my God. Alex just like teasing,
so funny,
ripping the shit out of George every day I would live for that.
Iconic.
So I think that is a really good option. And I think one that, and again, I brought up with Nate, does Alex want to go back to Red Bull? They might want him, but does he really want to go back there? And is that going to be, do you want to go up against Max? And I think George is a teammate that, yes, George is good, but you could see most drivers saying, I could compete with George, or I'm better than, I can take it. Like, it's not so like, ooh, scary.
First driver, second driver. Like, it seems to be a little bit more even playing field.
Yes. And so you could see Alex feeling more like confident going into that type of team, whereas the Red Bull team is just a little bit more like, it's just shaky and a little more difficult to navigate. I've seen people throw around Mick Schumacher, and I just have to say, like, I know people love Mick.
Yeah, I love Mick.
But, like,
it's not happening.
He's not the guy.
That honestly will shock me more than this.
Yes.
Because he was released from Haas for crashing too much.
And, like,
I know Mercedes has more money, but, like, it's not.
And, like, for not being able to beat Kevin Magnussen, who now is getting, like, trounced by Nico Hülkenberg. Like, I just don't know that Mick Schumacher is...
It's not for right now.
Should he, like, maybe get another shot at a different, like, a team lower on the grid? Maybe.
But I'm like, okay, so move Alex into Merc and put Mick at Williams.
Sure. Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I've also heard some people speculate. Okay, so rumor on the street is that Fernando's already been in contact with Toto Wolff.
Lols, of course he has.
Which is funny. Though part of me is like, does Mercedes really want Fernando Alonso? I know he's an amazing driver and he's so talented, but he's going to be 43 this year.
So what?
No, but I'm just like, if they want to really like solidify a team, to have a team for the future and to move forward, Fernando's not going to be your guy. He's like a placeholder for a period of time before you get to the next spot. So maybe they would go with him, but I could see them wanting to go with someone that's more like, this is a partnership that's going to stick around for a while.
Yeah.
Other people throwing around Carlos Sainz. Now, my feeling is it's very similar to when McLaren got Oscar from Alpine, and then people were like, oh, Alpine should just sign Daniel. It's like, why would Alpine take the driver that McLaren dropped in order to steal their driver?
Yeah.
It's like, it makes you seem inferior.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're taking another team sort of, I don't mean Carlos's damaged goods, but like, it's not good optically.
No, it's not, but it's also like, they're taking an icon for their team. Yeah. It's like, it's such a bigger thing than just like a driver trade. Yes. So, I mean, I don't think Carlos going to Mercedes is like the worst optically, although I totally understand what you're saying, but it seems like he's like totally shoo-in for Audi.
Yeah.
So I don't, it's
I
weird.
Don't see it. I don't really see it happening.
But I feel terrible for him because this is a shitty way to start your season.
Yeah. I mean, it's super shitty. We'll get into Carlos too, but then another, people are also talking about, and Nate brought him up as well on the podcast, Kimi Antonelli, who's the Mercedes reserve driver who's going to be driving an F2 this upcoming season, and like he's only 18 years old, so the idea of him going straight to the Merc seat is like kind of crazy, and I don't know that they do that. But let's say he has a really impressive F2 season, maybe he wins F2. I could see them putting him in the Williams, and then Alex into the Merc seat. Like that's possible. Also, people have thrown around Esteban Ocon because Esteban has the Toto Wolff relationship, though I don't really see that really as much. To me, I feel like Alex is like the lead runner. Some people have also said Daniel Ricciardo. Daniel Ricciardo is not going to Mercedes. It's
not happening.
He is in the Red Bull family, and that is where he shall,
he's not leaving that family again.
He's not.
Yeah, he did that once and it didn't go well. Well, he left the Red Bull family once.
Right. And
then it was downhill until he came back. So
that is not happening.
Yeah.
Guys.
The other thing I could see happening is if Williams continues to get more competitive. Now, to be fair, I know it seems like a lot of the reason Williams has been more competitive is because Alex is in the seat. Yeah. But I think it's pretty likely that, well, nothing's likely anymore. If Logan is not re-signed, I could see potentially Ocon, like Williams might end up being a better fit for Ocon in certain ways if the car can do, I don't know. And maybe that's like an insane thing to say. I'm not really sure, but I don't think he's going to, like, if he's going to stay in, like, or be in the Merc family somewhere, I don't think it's going to be at Merc. Like, the only place he would go would be
situation at Alpine. Like, I think, like, the Frenchness of everything, and whatever. Like, I think that's a good place for him. And they're in the midfield, and they're, he got a podium last year. Like, I think that's where he will stay.
Yeah.
But
I am hoping for Alex.
Yeah, same. I like that move better for Alex than the Red Bull move.
Yeah.
Even if the Red Bull move is technically quote unquote better, in terms of like the car capability.
Yeah. We've also stopped talking about Liam. Like, where is he going to end up? Because he's almost guaranteed.
Yeah. So I think he's going into one of those V-carb seats next year, and either Daniel goes to Red Bull and he takes that seat, or Yuki goes somewhere and he takes that seat, or whatever. Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. But we shall see. Also, I just want to put out a PSA plea to the just F1 people in general. We need Bono to go with Lewis to Ferrari.
I think that's Bono's choice.
I know. And we need it because we just need the connection. We need the hammer time. We need to get in there, Lewis. And
I wonder if that's something that you put in a contract. Like, do you think he says, like,
I don't know.
You have to at least extend him the job to travel to come with me?
Yeah, I honestly can't lose that partnership. I will not. It will not feel right to me if
also
he's with somebody else.
Well, that and also like
the efficiency.
Yeah, I mean, you can't have him with like a lovely Italian, yet Italian nonetheless. Yeah, I mean, that's just not going to work.
No, it's not going to work. A lot of people have been saying, like, I think I was listening to P1 with Matt and Tommy. And they were talking about how, Carlos is like always the one that's strategizing and figuring out where to go and like, kind of like really takes charge. And obviously we know Charles Leclerc is like not as...
Tell me what to do.
He's not as good at that stuff, which, is maybe one of his downfalls. And Lewis, at least, despite Ferrari's ineptitude, Lewis has the ability to take charge. And he's not just going to like let them do to him what they've done to Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hope they learned their tire strategy situation too, because he will not have any. He barely had time for Merck's tire strategy, and they did a half decent job. So.
Exactly. Okay. We've kind of talked about this briefly, but why do we feel like this was announced so early?
I'm not really sure, to be honest. I mean, I think for me, I can see kind of to what we talked about with Nate, with Lando and his situation is just kind of having it done and out of the way. Like, if it's a thing and it's a done deal, like just announce it so that you can get the talking out of the way at the beginning of the season, so it's not all anyone's talking about when the season's actually happening.
Yeah.
Lewis seems like someone who would do that on purpose for that reason. The only other thing I can think of is that because, like, I don't know, maybe because this sounds really bad, but like they don't do anything out of respect for the other people involved. Right, no. So like, part of me was like, well, maybe they did it this soon so that Carlos like knows and can like, have time to figure it out and like give him the entire season basically to understand. Yeah. But there's also a lot of negative around that because it's like, when someone puts in their 2 weeks notice, there's a very quick decline of them giving a shit. Yeah. And I know that this business is so different because you're just consistently creating your portfolio for the next team. Right. So it's a little bit different in that way, but it's still kind of hard to want to stay invested in the team dynamic when they blew you off for a year. Yes.
Well, so I wrote down in my notes, I said, this is kind of like, and I know 2020 was a different year because of the pandemic and like the season didn't really start till like the middle of the summer. So technically there would have been all these months of races that didn't end up happening, but like they started the 2020 season with Carlos knowing he was going to be going to Ferrari the following year and Daniel going to McLaren, and we saw Daniel and Cyril's relationship was a little bit strained because they knew that he was already going to be gone, and that was challenging for them, but they ended up doing getting it together, and Daniel got podiums and it worked out. And I think if you're a professional, you can try to put that aside, but it is challenging. And from Carlos's perspective, you're not going to be on this team anymore. The team is probably going to start favoring, not that they weren't, but Charles going to get more of the focus and in terms of the development of the car because he won't be around. So that has to
be fair is how it probably always would have gone anyway. But yet it's a lot different when the driver is removed by the team than like Carlos's dynamic on Ferrari is going to be so different than Lewis's because Lewis's team feels like he's abandoning them.
He's
and
in the
Carlos
Daniel position.
Feels like he's been kicked to the curb. And so it's very interesting because I feel like, Carlos is like he on his own with his mindset can just get through it. Yeah. Where, I think everyone has enough respect for Lewis that they're not going to be a bunch of assholes or whatever, but like that is probably a harder dynamic to overcome throughout the season than, and maybe that's part of the reason Lewis wanted to do it so soon. It's like, I need everyone's head in the game. Like, I'm here for another year. Everything I do here matters for Mercedes. So like,
let's just get to it.
This is what's happening. Let's move on and let's just get through the season.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also feel like I wonder how that's going to affect George, and will George start to get a lot more of the focus and the attention? And
part of me says no, so and only, and not in a like disrespect way, I guess, but just in a like.
Well, it also depends on like
who are they bringing in? Like, is Lewis? Because is George going to be number one next year?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, but the problem is like if Lewis continues to be faster than George, then they can't.
Yeah, it's not a good business decision.
They have to go with Lewis because he is faster, and you still want to perform on track for that given year because money and whatever. So yeah, it's going to depend on how they play out, how things play out on track.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see how that all transpires, and it's just interesting that it happened so soon, and that there was no period of like, let's think about this. And the other thing I was going to, we can get into what happened with, or what's going to happen with Carlos, but like, it feels like Carlos kind of, I don't know, like played his, was a little bit over, like, I think he felt pretty confident about getting another extension with Ferrari. And like, we talked about this too, how he was pushing back on what Ferrari was offering him and like wanting a longer deal. And I think he wanted to get what Charles Leclerc had been offered, and he wasn't. And so like, I think he kind of like overplayed his hand slightly. And I think Ferrari was like, okay, well, like, you've pushed it too far.
Sure.
And now...
And I also think it's one of the, like we talked about at the beginning, like you have a wish list. Lewis is the top of the list. And if Lewis becomes available, everything else is off the table and it doesn't really matter. So I think Carlos maybe didn't necessarily overplay his hand when Lewis wasn't in the conversation. But the minute he became a part of the conversation, there wasn't one anymore.
Yes.
Which is... good for Lewis, but that sucks for everybody else.
I also read that, so apparently Charles Leclerc knew about the Lewis to Ferrari. Like, I think Ferrari was in talks with Lewis, and they knew that it was probably going to become a reality while Charles was doing his contract extension. So he was aware, because I think there's a lot of people that are like, oh my God, how could Ferrari do this to Charles? Like, bring in...
He's been informed. You can tell he's been informed.
And I feel like if Charles had real serious issues with Lewis coming to his team, I don't think they would have brought Lewis in.
Yeah.
Because again, Charles, their guy for the future. And also, if he really didn't want to be there with Lewis, he could have gone somewhere else. Like, he wouldn't have signed the extension. So like, I have to imagine that he was on board. And then I guess Carlos has been aware for like a couple of weeks as well about the move. So it wasn't like they didn't know.
Well, I'm glad they didn't find out today.
Yeah. So,
I do hope there's a very small montage at the end of DTS.
So that's funny. So our friend Fev texted us today, and she was talking about how she just finished season 5 of Drive to Survive. And she was like, okay, wait, like what's going on with Daniel? Like, she's like, that freaking montage at the end of and I was like, well, so spoiler alert, like he signs with the team.
Yeah.
You'll see it, but whatever. Because she's like, I don't know if I can like watch F1 if he's not in F1. I was like, girl, you avoided all the stress. And so, yeah, I thought of the same thing. Like at the very end of this season 6 final episode, there has to be a little Gunther like goodbye, and then also memorial. Like Lewis Ferrari like kind of talk.
Just like I could just see it, like all the tweet sound, just all of it like popping up.
Yes, exactly.
And then either a cut to Fred, who's just being like cheeky, and it's like Lewis Hamilton's coming, just cutting out, or Lewis doing it.
We have to give it up for Fred Vasseur, like making moves, doing shit that other like Mattia could never do. Like
could never.
We have to give it up for Fred. He's done it, which is pretty impressive. Okay, Carlos. So as you mentioned, you think he's going to Audi. I've seen some tweets that say like Audi's obviously in the front for him, but then also Merc is potentially there, and Aston Martin is a part of the conversation as well. I saw a tweet, and again, a lot of just rumors and people speculating, but Williams potentially seems unlikely. Yeah. I mean, I don't think if you are a Carlos Sainz fan out there, I do not think you need to be concerned about him being on the grid. I think he is going...
That's interesting, because there's a lot of chatter that he's basically going to take a year off before Audi comes in, which I don't see that happening. And I think there's so many contracts up next, like at the end of 2024, that I don't really see it happening.
Yeah, especially both Valtteri and Joe's contract is up. So I have
and forgive me for just not knowing, but Sauber is going to become Audi.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I think, and Nate talked about that the other day of like, maybe he just goes in early and just gets to know the team.
And like probably puts in his opinion for car development and like gets it ready for 26 when they come in.
Yeah.
Would not shock me at all. I think he is a very good driver. I feel like this about Carlos and George. I feel this way about them. Like, I don't think they are the most like naturally gifted drivers in the way that like a Charles Leclerc is or a Lando Norris. It's like, wow, they just like have it. They have it. But Carlos and George have the mental side of the game on lock. They know how to work super hard, like game the system, not game it in like that they're like taking loopholes, but they just like can maximize their
Lando
potential
and DRS,
so well that they like that they can get in positions and places that maybe like just their raw talent wouldn't take them.
Sure.
And I think the difference, and then you have Charles Leclerc who like has such amazing talent, but like lacks some of the like mental side of the game.
Needs to be told.
And that's when you have the icon greatest drivers of all time, your Max Verstappen's, your Lewis Hamilton's, your Fernando Alonso's. It's the converging of both.
Yeah.
It's the raw speed. And Charles Leclerc, I'm not saying he's like a dummy that can't get it together, but like he's got to work on that part of the game because that's what's going to take him to the next level.
Lewis will teach him.
Yeah, for sure. Take him under his wing. So Carlos, I feel like has really like the fact that he was raced for Ferrari for what I guess he went there in 2021. So 21, 22, 3, 4 for 4 years. Like I feel like that's really impressive.
Yeah.
Like to get to that point when maybe he like, I don't know that people expected that of him when he first got into Formula One.
Sure.
So, but I think he's a very solid driver. I think he's worthy of being on the grid. Obviously, like brings a lot of attention. People love him. So I think he'll be okay. Like I wouldn't, it's not like again, not to keep bringing up Daniel, but like when Daniel got kicked out of McLaren, I was like, well, fuck, like where's he going to end up? Cause like, he's just like, it's not working out so well for him. And obviously,
shout out to V-Carb.
Shout out to Christian Horner, man.
Truly.
So yeah. So of those places, do you feel like Audi's the most likely?
It seems like the best choice for all of the reasons we just said. Too. Like he's going there anyway, most likely. Why not just get him in, get acclimated, to your point, be involved in the meetings about car development, etc. Because the other fear is that if Audi is really a thing, and I know it's kind of these like tentative contract things, so like he's maybe signed something with Audi, but it's
feel like he has like already like really like he's already going and it's already done, it's a done deal, but like
I mean, nothing's been announced.
Yeah,
so
we don't know anything.
Seems like maybe there's this like hold contract. Who the hell knows?
Yeah.
But if that is true, no one's going to take him for a year.
No.
So it would only make sense for him to go.
And I think we can say, and we like both Valtteri and Joe, but it's not like either of them are like lighting up the joint. Like it's not like they're.
Well, they might be.
They might next year, but like they're not drivers where you're like you would be shocked.
I meant literally lighting up joints. By the way, I was just joking. I've been watching too much Shameless.
They might get fast.
No, I didn't mean that. With all respect,
in there. Yeah. So yeah, like whereas with like Aston Martin, you're like, okay, well Lance, obviously he's sticking around, or
as long as he wants to.
And then Fernando, it's like who knows what's going to happen there, and is Fernando a better option than Carlos? Like, so I feel
only we could have brought in another team.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
I know it's a conversation for another day, but felt like a good spot to tease it.
Totally. Yeah, I'll be really excited to see what ends up happening there. I think it'll be very interesting to see how that works itself out, and but I think he'll be okay, and I don't think we need to be concerned about him being in Formula One. At least that's just my...
Yeah, I don't want to be worried about that either. So I will take that and run with it.
Yes. Okay, and then I want to just get to quickly, I feel like there's a lot of people who are concerned about, Ferrari, the fact that Lewis is coming in, and like I've said this, certainly, that Charles is the number one driver at Ferrari, but Ferrari does not do number one drive. They don't just... They treat their drivers equally, and there is no sort of hierarchy, and that causes
Is that real?
That's what they say. That's their message, is that like there is no, we don't do like the team order stuff and the treatment that other teams do in terms of like this person's 1, this person's 2. And I think that's gotten them in trouble sometimes because people then don't know their place. Like I know we talk about all the time, we don't like team orders, or we don't like it when certain drivers get favor over other drivers, but sometimes it is necessary to like maximize your points or whatever. And so people are like concerned, what's going to happen with Charles Leclerc? Is he going to be the number 1? Is Lewis 1? Why would Lewis go if he's not 1? And I am, in my opinion, like I see it as like a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
They're going to push each other. One of them will be better than the other. That's just how it is in F1. But like, I'm not really concerned about, I don't know, like if it's a world championship contending car.
What a time that would be.
Yeah. And I know this is my own bias because I like both of them very much. And actually that's a good question. Like, who would I rather win? But I would feel like, okay, well, however this shakes out, Charles or Lewis, I'll be happy. And I also feel like whoever wins like deserves, like if Lewis is faster than Charles, then Lewis deserves to win the championship and vice versa. So like, I don't know.
Well, if they really don't do team orders and they're both in a championship contending car, then battle it out. And so, and I know that's like not, because there's people that want to see Charles Leclerc win, but I don't know. This is my own personal feeling that I'm not really concerned about that. And I feel like, and I also feel like they have enough respect for each other. Like we said, that it's not going to be so Nico Lewis. It's not going to get nasty. Now I feel like eat my words, but I don't really envision it getting nasty. No, I mean, and also just the age difference between the two of them. I mean, I think if there gets to be the point that Ferrari changes the way they do things and there is a first driver and a second driver, it will be based on who's doing the best. And so that's just how it works. But also I think there's just a natural, like, we've talked about this before any of this happened, like Lewis is more of a mentor, maybe like relationship to Charles rather than being like besties, which I think is also why that, you know, it's not going to hopefully shake out like the Nico Rosberg thing is like, I almost said Nico Hulkenberg. How embarrassing would that have been?
You would never win a championship.
No. That like they are, you know, it's kind of like the Seb Daniel dynamic in a way, you know, it's like, he's just like, I also think that if they are like, let's just say they're totally on par with one another, Lewis is getting the first seat,
interesting,
in my opinion.
Interesting. Okay.
And the reason I think that is for a couple of reasons. One, Lewis is just, I mean, the way I look at it, if he gets his 8th championship in the first year at Ferrari, he's leaving.
Okay.
I believe that. I didn't see this coming, so like I will be willing to swallow my words. Yeah. But I would, I could see him wanting, because Michael Schumacher is the title holder right now for.
They're both tied on with 7.
Right, but he has to 8 would break. Yeah. So I mean, there's nothing, and this also goes to maybe why he's chosen to move. It's like get his 8th with Ferrari. Yeah. And
that would be iconic.
He's out.
Yeah. And I also too, like I said this to some people in our DMs, like Charles is their guy for the future. Charles is the guy. I mean, I think he's 26 right now. Like I know that's not young, but Lewis Hamilton's 39. Yeah. So like Charles is the guy.
Brandon's 43. So if you got it, you got it.
Exactly. And Charles is going to be around for a long time. And so I think if Lewis comes in, and again, I'm speaking from a biased perspective because I'm a fan of each of them equally. And I think that because they'll both be so strong and they'll elevate, and like I was thinking about this too, this is a bit of a side conversation, but like Red Bull right now is going to have, it really has got to figure out their shit in terms of the second driver thing, because you've got McLaren with Oscar and Lando, and now Ferrari with Lewis and Charles Leclerc. I mean, that is insane that those two drivers are going to be on the same team together. If Red Bull's if they only have Max and like their other drivers just like not cutting it, whoever that driver is, like they're not going to be able to win constructors championships, like because the gap's going to continue to close and close and close and close as you know time. I mean, we saw it happen last year. Like it's going to get a bit closer every single year. You would hope. They're going to have to like really figure out that whole situation because
Yeah.
you can't have a driver get double the amount of points that their second driver gets and expect to like contend unless you have the car that they had last year, you know? So something to consider.
Yeah.
It's also
Take notes, Red Bull.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, anyway, it's just a very fascinating situation all around, and I'm excited to see how it shakes out. Did you see Red Bull's post today?
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Killing it.
If you guys missed it, it was just like a short clip of Max and Checo from the when they did the like racing thing in Vegas against AlphaTauri, well, VCarb. And
Well,
Max,
it was AlphaTauri.
Right, exactly. And Max says something like they're like watching Daniel and Yuki do their thing, and Max says something like they didn't change their drivers or something, and then Checo's like, oh no, they did.
Yeah, he's like, they're not switching drivers.
And it was just
Well, and then I think the caption on
iconic.
one of the VCarb either videos or pictures today was like, social media is pretty quiet today, so we thought we'd drop this. I was like, that was sneaky.
Yep, very,
and if
very
anything is going to break up our social media feed from the news of Lewis Hamilton, it is Daniel Ricciardo. So
a couple timeline cleanses just to keep the
they helped me, so I hope they helped you.
Also hilarious at Daniel that his Enchante collection dropped today.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
it's
the
hidden.
king of the worst timing of all.
Yeah, it's not his fault.
Exactly. Like, but I mean, he just continues to like not intentionally make not bad decisions, but just. I guess
He's launching a Valentine's Day collection on February 1st. What's he supposed to do? Ferrari should have pushed their announcement.
Yeah, exactly. I guess the positive is that everyone's on their phone.
Yeah.
Looking at content.
I mean,
so
I
like,
still saw it.
Yeah, exactly. And then did you see Peroni, who like now is going to be Ferrari? Did you see the little Easter egg?
TG1F, I think, posted, or that's where I saw it, was on their story.
So Peroni, who is now, which by the way, that ad, the commercial, like the heist commercial.
Oh yeah, what the hell? We've come a long way from the Shell commercial, haven't we?
I know.
Goodness.
I know. But
less lines.
They
probably
posted,
helps.
Right, yeah. They posted a picture of like, I don't know, it was like
it was just like a late
Ferrari
image
type stuff. But there was a little red car with the number 44 on the car.
Yeah, but that was released a while ago,
It was
right?
released like a few days ago.
Yeah. I didn't see it until I saw it today.
We didn't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like,
I didn't see the ad.
Oh yeah, same.
the slate flat.
Same.
But yeah, that's
kind of crazy.
Really
and it's like,
crazy.
Was that just a coincidence?
Well, that and then like we've talked about it multiple times, but it just felt like Lewis and Charles were getting chummier. He was in his photo dump, and now it's like, how long have you all known? Mood.
Well, they only knew apparently for
yeah. Everyone's lying, and they've known for a long time. And then it was out of context. I remember seeing the original video, but it was a long time ago. But when Charles was being asked what he looks for in a teammate, and he looks
that's
over,
what our TikTok's going to be, by the way.
Okay, great. Keep an eye out. And he looks over and he's like, Lewis? And like, again, I do not recall the context of it, but it wasn't that long ago, was it? Or was it like a year ago?
No, it was Monaco of last year.
Yeah, these boys know things way before.
But I think, again, that's when there was like, again, some speculation, the initial speculation about Lewis going to Ferrari, and then obviously then he signed. There's always things pop up and pop down.
But I just think it's been percolating for a while.
It's been percolating. Okay, I want to just quickly read Lewis's statement, Toto's statement, and then Carlos's statement.
Great, I didn't know any. I knew Toto had a statement, but I haven't read
in
any
case
of
you
the
haven't
others.
seen it, and then and this is all very kind of like
PR.
Yeah, exactly. But might as well read it. Okay, so this is what Lewis had to say. I have had an amazing 11 years with this team, and I'm so proud of what we achieved together. Mercedes has been a part of my life since I was 13 years old. It's a place where I have grown up, so making the decision to leave was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. But the time is right for me to take this step, and I'm excited to be taking on a new challenge. I will be forever grateful for the incredible support of my Mercedes family, especially Toto for his friendship and leadership, and I want to finish on a high together. I am 100% committed to delivering the best performance I can this season and making my last year with the Silver Arrows one to remember. Good job, Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Toto Wolff. Toto's got to be just
fuming,
fuck smashing doors left and right.
Yeah.
In terms of a team driver pairing, our relationship with Lewis has become the most successful the sport has seen, and that's something we can look back on with pride. Lewis will always be an important part of Mercedes motorsport history. However, we know our partnership would come to a natural end at some point, and that day has now come. We accept Lewis's decision to seek a fresh challenge, and our opportunities for the future are exciting to contemplate. But for now, we still have one season to go, and we are focused on going racing to deliver a strong 2024. And then Carlos said, following today's news, Scuderia Ferrari and myself will part ways at the end of 24. We still have a long season ahead of us. And like always, I will give my absolute best for the team and for the Tifosi all around the world. News about my future will be announced in due course.
Does that mean he has news about his future?
I guess he just means
Also, can I just say Carlos wrote his own and the other two did not?
Yeah. So there you have it. From the wolf's mouth. I wanted to also just read some questions. I went through all the questions everybody submitted, and there was a lot of stuff that I knew we would just cover naturally within the conversation, but there were a couple that I felt like we could maybe we could
elaborate.
Yeah, or just like it was kind of interesting. So one question was, what would you do if you were Carlos, both track wise and media wise? Spill the beans or be in your clean era?
Clean era, like, because he's up, so he's free agent essentially. Well, you know what I mean?
Clean in terms of like, do you be a little messy in terms of the way that you talk about this whole situation, no. Or do you just say very like,
anyone who wants to PR. Potentially sign you on is looking at you right now. Like, yeah. You don't get to be messy. No.
You keep it as, I mean, you do what, I know it's a different situation and I keep bringing him up, but you do what Daniel Ricciardo did when he got dropped from McLaren. Mm-hmm. You keep it cordial. Yeah. You keep it nice.
Make it nice.
Make it nice. Exactly. Because you don't want people thinking, I mean, I don't think Carlos is like this anyway, but like you want your next employer to see you positively, and not that you're someone that just like runs their mouth. Right. So you do the best you can on track. You be the ultimate team player. You say the right thing. You talk shit to your friends and your family, but like,
and hasn't he left teams before?
Yes.
Like he made those choices. So, it's just business.
We all, I mean, everyone understands. I shouldn't say everyone. Like there are some people that when things happen, Fernando Alonso, are not the most, they don't part ways gracefully.
Sure. But Fernando Alonso,
he's an anomaly
type. Yeah. And also I think, if Carlos, if you're listening, Chinese farmer, like there is good here. Maybe it's all part of the plan for you to get into Sauber early. You be
the number one driver, get the focus.
You have absolutely no idea how positive this could be for you.
Exactly.
Chinese farmer,
always. And then this was what we kind of already talked about this, but who will Ferrari prioritize? They've made it clear CL is their golden boy. Can Lewis handle that?
No. Well, maybe. If they are equally competitive, then yes. But like if it's and it's not going to be, but if it's a Max Checo dynamic in the car, no, he couldn't handle that if he was the Checo in the dynamic. Not at all. But that's also not what's going to happen. No. So I think it'll be fine. I also think to your point, Charles is the golden boy in like longevity as well. Yeah. And like I really just don't, I mean, not that he could not stay in for many years to come, but I really don't see Lewis being in the sport all that much longer. And so while they may at certain times favor Lewis, like from car setups or whatever, long term, Charles the guy.
Yes. So period. And also like Lewis knows Charles Leclerc. Like it's not like he's walking in and it's Charles Leclerc's first year at Ferrari and he's like, it's not like Sebastian Vettel and Charles Leclerc being teammates and it's like, whoa, all of a sudden like, who is this guy? He's amazing. It's like Lewis is not naive. He understands like Ferrari is Charles Leclerc. Like he knows what he's getting himself into. Mm-hmm. So I don't think he's gonna be then all of a sudden like, wait, what? Like Charles
he's in charge around here.
I think again, and I also think Lewis is like not making this decision because he knows that that Ferrari is like going to be for sure competing for championships. I think it's more of just like I want to try something new. Yeah. I've always wanted to race for Ferrari and I'm going to give it a shot. Yeah. And I don't think it really at this current moment, as far as what we know now, I don't know if it's anything more than that. Mm-hmm.
I got to be honest though. And the way that Charles is Ferrari, like Lewis is Merc to me, and it's weird like seeing him in like the Ferrari hat, seeing him in red, like it's not, there's nothing wrong with it, obviously, it's just a little bit spooky.
He's entering his red era,
and I gotta be honest, like I don't know, I don't love the red. I love the black race suits. He's so swaggy already.
Yes. I am curious because, Ferrari has they did not let Charles Leclerc do his fashion line. He wanted to do a clothing line a number of years ago. They said they put the kibosh on that. And, Lewis obviously he shows up to the track in his fashion. He's not wearing the polo and the khakis or the bad pants like Charles Leclerc wears. Maybe Lewis can rub off some fashion tips onto Charles Leclerc and
that'd be great.
Burn some stuff that he has. But I wonder if they're gonna loosen the reins a little bit of what the drivers are able to do and their their brand of just show more of their personality.
Yeah.
And I have to imagine that Lewis had that in his contract. He's not just going to stop doing the things that he does. So maybe Charles Leclerc can pick up some of that and then he can start his stuff. Cause where's the Charles Leclerc?
I'm worried about a Charles Leclerc fashion line though. If his pants or anything to say about that.
But as we've learned, as we've seen at the Jonas Brothers concert and stuff, there is a market for the Charles Leclerc fashion.
That's so true.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Nick Jonas wore pants that Charles Leclerc might also wear.
We couldn't decide if it was, or I couldn't decide if it was Charles or Pierre. We were kind of
either way.
Yeah, they have similar
Pierre
fashion.
would wear what Charles wears in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. They both have curious taste.
European
of pants.
Yeah.
Specifically pants. It's their pant choices is just quite strange.
Yeah.
But anyway, it is weird. It is weird the idea of Lewis not being with Mercedes, that brand.
We've got a year to get
the good thing is that at least he will know how to say his team name. He will not struggle with Mercedes AMG Petronas Formula One team.
There's just so much, it's been a while though.
I can't wait for Yuki to have to say Visa, Cash App, RB. I mean, not that it's that hard to say, but I feel like he's going to mess it up.
The RB piece, it makes it hard to say out loud. The Visa see?
Yeah, it is hard. It's a challenge. All right. Anything else to add before we...
What a fucking day, man.
Crazy.
It's been crazy. Real. It is days like this, though, that I get so excited about this little world we've built because, truly, actually, when you said there were so many messages, it's there still are so many people that listen to us who don't, can you imagine not being able to text one of your best friends today and be oh
terrible.
My God.
It'd be terrible.
If I didn't have people to talk to when Zane left One Direction, I would have crumpled alone.
I know.
Now, I'm different in that I just tell whoever's around anyway, because if I'm struggling with something, you need to know about it, which is maybe a red flag. But yeah, I mean, it was just nice.
Yeah.
And I'm glad people felt our fan amp chat was popping off today, which I'm glad people had that.
Yeah, and it's really nice. There were so many people that were I'm so happy you're doing an emergency podcast. People actually want to listen to us.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's very kind.
And once we had decided to do it, I also saw many messages being it's an emergency podcast coming. I'm yeah, it has to now because people are asking for it. And I don't know, maybe this is just me being naive, but I knew it was a big deal, but I don't think it was until midday today that I realized how much it was affecting people.
Yes.
And how significant it actually was.
Yes, I agree.
And so I'm glad we did this. I hope you liked it.
My dad also mentioned, sorry to keep this whole thing going, but
I'm not sorry.
Yeah, but I was talking to my parents because they obviously, and my dad was wow, this is so shocking. And I said, this is really reminiscent of, for our American sports fans out there, Tom Brady leaving the Patriots to go to the Buccaneers.
Sure.
Which, it was Tom Brady was the Patriots. And then he makes this decision late in his career to go to a red team after being with a silver team kind of. He did win a championship though, so maybe that means good things for
interesting
for Mr. Lewis. But and how shocking that was, and how much of an adjustment period that was. And my dad also said he was it would be if Patrick Mahomes left the Chiefs to go play for the Cowboys.
Ugh. Oh my God!
And how devastating that would be.
Now I do want to say the comparison of the it's just that him leaving teams is a real bummer, and I guess for some people there is. I don't feel that conflicted between. I don't think Merck is the Chiefs and Ferrari's the Cowboys.
No, but I guess for if
the significance
if you were so dedicated. Personally dedicated, right? And the Patrick Mahomes to the Cowboys thing would be more so because he grew up a Cowboys fan. The dream is maybe always to play for the Cowboys. And then he gets to live out the dream. So hopefully that will never happen, but you never know.
I do. It's not happening.
It's not happening. I just like, I'm like, and I also had this feeling, I think it was this week, or I just woke up one day and I was like, okay, enough of this break. I was like actually kind of angry. I was like, I need Formula One now. I cannot keep waiting around. I don't know why I'm like more antsy this year than I was last year.
I am too.
But
I don't know if it's because January was like the worst of all time. It was dark here for years. January, everyone always jokes that January is the longest month or month of what?
Month of the year?
No. Oh, that January is the longest year of the year. Like that January just takes...
feels like a year?
There's a meme that says it way better than that.
I got what you're saying.
But I have never really felt that. It was horrible. Like it was stupid.
It was rough.
And so now that we're in the month that Formula One begins via Drive to Survive, I'm like, let's go.
The race, I think like technically the first weekend starts on the 28th, I think, or something.
And
so
DTS comes out my birthday weekend. So
testing, car launch, like we're in it, but I just want the car. I want I did see a meme that was like how good it's gonna feel when like the intro ends, of the first race weekend, and then like I'm not gonna like the dun 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 dun, like the sound that plays when Crofty's like welcome, like when he's talking about like the track layout and stuff, like, and just that like visceral feeling that you have.
And I can't wait to see all the driver, like the intro video, all their poses.
Yes.
I hope George does something like on accident.
Come on.
I saw him stitch a TikTok that someone did of all the examples. But I don't want him to just like stand there because that's no fun. Like,
or someone, or if he's not going to give it to us, someone's got to.
The impact won't be the same unless it's Fernando or Yuki. It won't be the same.
Or maybe they could do a duel like Yuki on Fernando's shoulders combo pose.
Wow. That would be an interesting foreshadowing if
Yes. Or like Yuki jumps into Fernando's arms like like this.
Sure.
And
they should really hire us for this.
I mean, it would be iconic.
I don't think they do them in the same room. Like I don't think they're together when they happen, but
they're not. But I think they can make a change.
Or AI is getting really popular now.
That's how they're going to probably do it going forward eventually. All right, guys. Thank you for listening to this emergency podcast. Yeah. We were so happy we could do this for you guys. And as always, we're going to have an episode on Monday going over the other stuff that's happened this week, plus other crazy. And we'll probably get more information about all that's transpired over the weekend. And anything else?
I just thought silly season was a summer thing, so it's
silly
not.
Year.
We learn something new every day. But
all right, guys. Ashante.
Oh,
Get the new collection.
New launch drop today. Bye.